The shootout at the OK Corral is a confrontation that has come to symbolize both the allure and brutality of the Wild West, featuring the Earp brothers and Doc Holliday facing off against the Cochise County Cowboys in Tombstone, Arizona. Here's the twisted reality of the gunfight at the OK Corral. The OK, short for Old Kindersley Corral, was a livery stable situated on Fremont Street in Tombstone, operating between 1879 and 1888. Strangely enough, the gunfight itself didn't occur within or near the corral, as its name implies. Instead, it unfolded in a vacant lot adjacent to C.S. Fly's photography studio and boarding house, located 6 doors away from the corral. Doc Holliday, the legendary dentist-turned-tubercular gunslinger, happened to reside at that boarding house. Before we continue, please like and subscribe to the channel, and also share with fellow history enthusiasts. One of the key provocateurs of the fight, Ike Clanton, sought refuge in the studio while gunfire erupted. So did the one person who might have been able to prevent the bloodshed, John Behan, the sheriff of Cochise County. Interestingly, C.S. Fly's photographs of late 19th century Tombstone have become vital in shaping our understanding of life during the Wild West era. However, Fly did not capture any images of the battle or its aftermath. He did, nonetheless, play a role by disarming the mortally wounded Billy Clanton. Why the shootout came to be linked with the OK Corral remains somewhat puzzling, though it may be because the gunfight in the vacant lot next to C.S. Fly's photography studio and boarding house doesn't exactly have a catchy ring to it. At the time of the conflict, Tombstone, Arizona was a volatile mix of clashing groups and simmering tensions on the brink of eruption. It was also a hub of vice and debauchery. By the late 1870s and early 1880s, it boasted 2 dance halls, a dozen gambling establishments, 20 saloons, and, as one resident famously put it, 2 Bibles. Tombstone's origins trace back to a single silver mine. Ed Schieffelin departed an Arizona Army post in 1877, determined to uncover wealth in the Dragoon Mountains, despite warnings from his friends that he was essentially digging his own grave due to the area's significant Apache presence. Contrary to their fears, he discovered a lucrative silver vein, which he named Tombstone. A settlement quickly emerged around his find, and by 1880, the town was bustling with horses, stagecoaches, miners, sex workers, and ambitious politicians. Saloons and brothels thrived alongside the mining industry. For 7 years, people extracted riches from the earth until operations ceased due to a rising water table. Tombstone weathered numerous cycles of prosperity and decline, eventually earning the nickname the Town Too Tough to Die for its resilience during the Great Depression. The Earp brothers, Wyatt, Virgil, and Morgan, and Doc Holliday have long been portrayed as heroes in the legendary shootout at the OK Corral, while their adversaries, the Cochise County Cowboys, are often dismissed as unruly troublemakers. The reality of the situation is far more intricate than the popular narrative. Wyatt Earp, often celebrated as the quintessential lawman, was actually fleeing legal trouble when he arrived in Tombstone, seeking to profit from the silver boom. As a younger man, he had been arrested for horse theft in Indian Territory, escaped jail, and lived a transient life, moving between towns and brothels. On the other side, Tom and Frank McClory, 2 prominent cowboys, had come from Iowa in search of affordable land for their cattle. They were neither better nor worse than the countless other cattle rustlers who migrated west during the 1870s and 1880s under the guise of manifest destiny. One of the underlying disputes between the Earps and the Cowboys was surprisingly ordinary. The Cowboys had aligned themselves with Sheriff Johnny Behan, while Wyatt coveted Behan's position as sheriff. Meanwhile, Virgil Earp, acting as Tombstone's police chief, had spearheaded efforts to enforce strict firearm regulations in town, a move that clashed with the Cowboys' affinity for their guns. Predictably, tensions escalated. However, this tale lacks clear-cut heroes or villains. It is instead a story of ambitious men vying for power and wealth on the frontier. In many ways, Wyatt Earp and his adversaries were not so different after all. The rivalry between the Earps and the Cowboys deepened in March 1881, just months before the infamous shootout. The Sandy Bob stagecoach was held up by masked men, prompting the Earps to suspect the McClory brothers of orchestrating the robbery. Meanwhile, the McClorys were equally convinced that Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday were complicit in the crime. Amid this tension, Virgil Earp struck a deal with Ike Clanton, a member of the Cowboys. Hoping to bolster his image as a tough lawman ahead of local elections, Virgil promised Clanton all the reward money, no questions asked, if he helped turn in outlaws and suspects. Clanton agreed, but the arrangement became irrelevant when Leonard, Crane, and King, the suspected robbers, were killed before Virgil could apprehend them. Later, Wyatt Earp, also campaigning for office and aware of Clanton's pliable nature, proposed a staged robbery to Ike. The plan involved Wyatt and Holliday scaring off fake robbers to ensure no one got hurt while boosting Wyatt's reputation. Clanton refused, fearing it would backfire, and animosity between the factions only grew. By early October 1881, tensions boiled over when the Earps arrested Cowboys Frank Stillwell and Pete Spence for robbing a stagecoach near Bisbee. Outraged by what they saw as harassment, the Cowboys vowed revenge, setting the stage for further conflict. Virgil Earp didn't have to wait long for trouble to find him. While Wyatt Earp often gets most of the glory in films and other retellings of the infamous shootout, many historians agree that the real hero of this Wild West saga was Virgil Earp. A Civil War veteran who served as an infantryman for the Union Army, Virgil headed west after the war to join his younger brothers, Wyatt and Morgan. He quickly earned a reputation as a tough and efficient lawman, holding badges in both Prescott, Arizona, and Tombstone. In Tombstone, Virgil's primary mission was to put an end to the wave of stagecoach robberies that plagued the town. His no-nonsense approach and sharpshooting skills made him particularly effective in this role. On that fateful day in October 1881, when violence seemed inevitable, Virgil still tried to avoid bloodshed. He approached the Cowboys and ordered them to disarm, saying, "Throw up your hands. I want your guns." The Cowboys refused, and chaos erupted. During the firefight, Virgil continued shooting even after being struck by a bullet in the leg. His bravery under fire and determination to enforce the law cemented his place in history as a steadfast figure in one of the most legendary moments of the Wild West. The specific firearms used during the gunfight at the OK Corral remain uncertain, though it is widely believed they were black powder weapons which produced thick smoke that added to the chaos of the confrontation. Over time, antique gun dealers have profited from selling weapons allegedly tied to the shootout, including a Colt .45 revolver rumored to belong to Wyatt Earp, which sold for $225,000, and a shotgun reportedly used by Doc Holliday, fetching $150,000. However, the authenticity of these weapons is highly debated, as none of the guns used by the Earps or Holliday were officially identified at the time. Lawmen of the era typically carried single-action revolvers, and Holliday is said to have used a 10-gauge double-barreled shotgun handed to him by Virgil Earp before the fight. The Cowboys claimed they were unarmed during the shootout, but this was disproven when Frank McClory and Billy Clanton were found dead with Colt Frontier revolvers in their hands. Tom McClory's body bore evidence of being shot with buckshot, likely from Holliday's shotgun. The gunfight itself lasted only about 30 seconds and resulted in 3 deaths, Billy Clanton and the McClory brothers, while Virgil, Morgan, and Holliday were wounded. Despite Virgil's efforts to enforce firearm restrictions in Tombstone, the confrontation underscored the difficulty of imposing gun control in a lawless frontier town. The Cochise County Cowboys, often depicted as ruthless villains in Hollywood and historical retellings, were more nuanced in reality. Locals in the Arizona Territory viewed them primarily as a nuisance rather than outright evil. This loosely organized group of cattle rustlers and small-time criminals, numbering up to 300 members at their peak, specialized in stealing cattle and staging minor heists. They were known for riding through towns, brandishing weapons, and intimidating residents, including preachers and families. Despite their criminal activities, they were not universally despised, as their spending habits made them popular among certain business owners. The Cowboys' rivalry with the Earps stemmed from a series of petty incidents between 1879 and 1881, including accusations of horse theft and retaliatory actions. These conflicts often painted the McClory brothers, the Clantons, and other cowboys in a negative light. However, some historians argue that this portrayal is overly simplistic. For instance, Ike Clanton, frequently demonized, was a lunch counter operator, and Tom McClory was reportedly unarmed during the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral. In the days leading up to the shootout, tensions escalated as the Cowboys and the Earps traded threats while drinking heavily. Ike Clanton was particularly vocal, allegedly threatening to kill the Earps for interfering with his cattle-rustling operations. This volatile mix of personal grudges, political rivalries, and economic interests culminated in the gunfight on October 26, 1881, a brief but deadly clash that left 3 cowboys dead and cemented the Earps' place in Wild West legend. Ike Clanton was infamous for his bold talk, and in the lead-up to the gunfight at the OK Corral, he was overheard in several Tombstone saloons, telling patrons that he planned to kill the Earps as soon as he could get his hands on a weapon. Despite his threats, Clanton was known for exaggerating, and according to his surviving relatives, the Earps and Doc Holliday were the true instigators. They accused the Earps of robbing stagecoaches, getting away with it, and harassing the Clantons and McClorys whenever possible. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle. What is clear is that after a night of drinking and boasting, tensions boiled over, leading to the historic gunfight on October 26, 1881. The clash resulted in the deaths of Ike's brother Billy Clanton and the McClory brothers, while Ike fled the scene unarmed. His retreat earned him a reputation as a coward and a blowhard, especially after he had bragged about his supposed gunslinging prowess. Later, Ike pressed charges against the Earps and Holliday for murder, but all 4 men were acquitted after a lengthy hearing. Ike Clanton's life came to an end in 1887 when he was killed by law enforcement while resisting arrest for cattle rustling. Today, his legacy remains controversial. Some view him as a cowardly braggart, while others see him as a victim of frontier injustice. Wyatt Earp famously described the Cochise County Cowboys as lowlives and cow thieves, yet the town of Tombstone mourned Billy Clanton and Tom and Frank McClory with an elaborate funeral. Over 2,300 people paid their respects during the day-long memorial, which featured a procession that stretched 2 blocks. The procession included 300 mourners on foot, 22 carriages, and several men on horseback, all led by a brass band. The 3 men were buried at Boot Hill Cemetery, so named because many of its occupants died with their boots on. The events surrounding the gunfight at the OK Corral and its aftermath reflect the lawlessness of the era. In the months leading up to and following the shootout, no one was formally charged for the rampant crimes in the region. Stagecoach robberies were commonplace, often carried out by masked men who escaped justice. Even in cases like the Sandy Bob stagecoach robbery, where suspects were identified, they were killed before standing trial. This chaotic environment underscored the challenges of maintaining law and order in Tombstone during its Wild West heyday. Men in the Wild West often took justice into their own hands, and this was evident after the Earps and Doc Holliday were acquitted for the killings of Billy Clanton and the McClory brothers in the gunfight at the OK Corral. Not long after, Morgan Earp was assassinated in a saloon. Consumed by grief and rage, Wyatt Earp vowed vengeance for his brother and formed a posse to exact retribution. He tracked down Frank Stillwell and other suspected accomplices, killing them in cold blood during his infamous vendetta ride. The media coverage of these events was deeply divided, reflecting the political allegiances of local newspapers. The Tombstone epitaph sided with the Earps, portraying them as defenders of justice, while the Nugget supported the Cowboys, casting the Earps in a negative light. Despite initial skepticism about its longevity, its name prompted jokes that it wouldn't last a year. The Tombstone epitaph proved resilient. Its founder, John P. Clum, used the paper to champion law and order and expose corruption, particularly targeting the Cochise County Cowboys. However, Clum's motives weren't entirely pure. His efforts aligned with his political ambitions and those of Tombstone's Republican elite. The Vendetta Ride marked a violent chapter in Tombstone's history, underscoring the blurred lines between justice and revenge in the chaotic frontier era. The Tombstone epitaph aligned itself with the Earps and mining interests in Tombstone, while its rival, the Nugget, openly supported the Cowboys. This bias was evident in their coverage of the gunfight at the OK Corral and its aftermath. The Nugget portrayed Doc Holliday and the Earps unfavorably, while the epitaph championed them as enforcers of justice. The Cowboys' connection to Sheriff Behan likely influenced the Nugget's stance, as maintaining favorable coverage was beneficial for Behan's dealings with local cattle thieves. One article in the Nugget sought to paint the Clanton brothers in a sympathetic light, claiming they were not quarrelsome, but rather fighting men who conducted themselves quietly and orderly when in Tombstone. This portrayal contrasted sharply with their reputation as outlaws and the events leading up to the shootout. The divide between these two papers reflected not just political allegiances, but also the broader tensions within Tombstone during its Wild West heyday. This rivalry between newspapers illustrates how media bias shaped public perception of the gunfight and its participants, casting doubt on the objectivity of historical accounts. The gunfight at the OK Corral may have lasted just 30 seconds, but its legacy has endured for over a century, fueled by conflicting narratives, biased reporting, and larger-than-life characters. Were the Earps truly heroes, or were they opportunists exploiting the chaos of the Wild West? Were the Cowboys ruthless villains, or misunderstood men caught in a power struggle? The truth lies buried somewhere in the dusty streets of Tombstone, and perhaps even deeper in Boot Hill Cemetery. What do you think? Were the Earps justified in their actions, or did they take justice too far? Was Ike Clanton a coward, or simply a man outmatched by his enemies? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We can't wait to hear your take on one of history's most debated showdowns. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more fascinating stories from the Wild West and beyond. The untamed frontier still has secrets waiting to be uncovered.